Chinmu hurtled headlong into the walls time and again, and upon nearly every wall of disabled elderly village there blossomed visions of mountains and rivers, as though vast landscapes had been carved into clay. Only Granny C's dwelling remained untouched, unmarked by his crashing figure. He yearned to charge forth yet again, but suddenly discovered that the vital chi within his body had run dry. He could not help but stand there in a daze. Defeated. The Overlord body had been defeated. It had suffered an utter and crushing rout. Not only were his sword techniques inferior to those of Village Chief, even the density of his vital chi was beyond comparison. It seemed he truly could only accept the mantle of Human Emperor. Village Chief spoke gently. You may wait for your vital chi to recover before coming again. Chinmu steadied his breathing and answered, Okay. Village Chief's countenance darkened as he watched the cowherd boy dash off, hurrying away to cultivate that strange Overlord Body 3 elixir technique. You cheated, Apothecary remarked as he approached, having seen Chinmu's figure vanish into the distance. Village Chief was taken aback. Did I? Apothecary gave a cold laugh. Your sword skills devour an extreme quantity of vital chi. With the density of your cultivation, in the 5 elements realm you can execute them twice, 3 times at most. How many times did you perform them just now? About 7, was it? Village Chief could no longer maintain a straight face and muttered, The density of my vital chi is not as you imagine. If I control it carefully and use the least amount possible, I can execute my skills 4 times. However, Muir's vital chi is indeed dense. I had thought that in the 5 elements realm our reserves would not differ greatly, yet to my surprise... Apothecary laughed. To your surprise, he is a vast cauldron, and you are merely a barrel. Village Chief sighed and shook his head. In the spirit embryo realm, his chi is several times denser than mine, but it should not be so much denser in the 5 elements realm. I had no shortcomings in my 5 elements realm, yet he also has none. You noticed it too, yet you did not speak of it. Apothecary smiled faintly. He has already lost to you using the same sword skill, so why should I say anything? Yet earlier you claimed that the title of Human Emperor bears only responsibilities and burdens and no benefits. Was that not false? Village Chief replied lazily. What benefits? How come I know nothing of them? Apothecary's eyes flickered. I have heard certain legends concerning the Human Emperors and their seal. The Human Emperor's seal is connected to many ancient inheritances, some traceable to tens of thousands of years ago. Certain sacred grounds were founded by Human Emperors, and it is said that the Human Emperor's seal is even more useful than the Emperor's Jade seal. Village Chief answered indifferently. Those are legends, from who knows how many years past. The Human Emperor's seal is nothing but a lump of black iron. Who would heed a lump of black iron? Apothecary smiled. Legend says that once the Human Emperor's seal is displayed, one may command all the heroes under heaven. Village Chief yawned and said languidly, The Human Emperor's seal is with Muir. You may have him take it out and brandish it, then see which sect is willing to obey his command. It would be a blessing if he were not beaten to death. Apothecary said resentfully, You knew clearly how dangerous this was, yet you still handed the Human Emperor's seal to him. Village Chief cast aside his laziness. A flash of swordlight streaked across his eyes as he spoke solemnly. This is a responsibility, and also a burden. When this burden fell upon my shoulders, I could not bear it, and my limbs were severed, yet someone must shoulder it. I cannot take it with me into the grave. There are matters that must be done even when one knows full well they are perilous. Village Chief exhaled slowly and said, If something is done, there exists the possibility of failure, even death, but also a sliver of hope. If nothing is done, there is not even that sliver. What the Human Emperors of old have done far surpasses what you can imagine. Muir is not bad. Apothecary said sorrowfully, I only feel pain that Muir is being dragged onto your old path. How can he possibly defeat you? He cannot win. A trace of pride tinged Village Chief's tone. He will never defeat me using sword-treading mountains and rivers. Though this move is formed from 14 basic sword forms, after my tempering it contains no flaw. When he sought to merge the Imperial Preceptor's 3 basic sword forms into my sword skill, he was forced to alter it. Though his ideas are good, his horizons are not as broad as mine. One change creates a flaw. The more he alters it, the more flaws will appear. Apothecary stood dumbfounded. He let out a long breath and looked toward Qin Mu, who was now sprinting in the distance, and could not help but feel pity. However, he may borrow my hand to polish his sword skill. Village chief smiled. The more he alters sword-treading mountains and rivers, the more deeply he will understand the sword. The deeper his understanding, the closer he will draw to leaving sword techniques behind, leaving sword skills behind, and approaching the path itself. If his comprehension of the sword reaches the realm of the path, whether there are 14 or 17 basic forms will no longer matter. To learn sword skills and to wield sword skills is but the realm of technique. It is learning and employing something external. To ascend higher, one must innovate. This is the stage where Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor now stands. To go one step further still, one must abandon skill and technique altogether. That is the realm of the path. Village chief said, Muir presently stands between technique and skill. For him to use my hand to temper his sword skill is far better than for me to instruct him directly. After a time, Qin Mu's cultivation returned to its peak, yet he did not immediately seek out village chief. Instead, he sat down and quietly comprehended. He sought to perfect his own sword-treading mountains and rivers until not a single flaw remained. What he wished was to merge the Imperial Preceptor's 3 basic sword forms into sword-treading mountains and rivers without leaving any weakness behind. He knew he could not defeat Village Chief using Village Chief's own skill. Yet if he improved upon it, there might be a chance. He pondered diligently. The sword moves in his mind fell into chaos before being rearranged anew. He then conjured an image in his mind of clashing blades with Village Chief. Yet every clash ended in defeat. Countless battles were enacted within his thoughts. No matter how he refined the move, the outcome did not change. After some time, Qin Mu roused his spirit and rose to his feet. Within the tempest of his mind, he had finally managed to defeat Village Chief using a newly forged sword skill. Filled with excitement, he rushed forward. Village Chief, once more. Village Chief smiled broadly. Okay. Qin Mu dashed forward and executed his improved sword skill. In the next instant, he was flung high into the air, leaving a trail of blood behind him before crashing into the chicken coop. More than a dozen hen dragons clucked and charged fiercely toward him. Qin Mu sprang upward at once, and the hen dragons flapped their wings to pursue him. Their feathers were like blades, and they spat flames at him. Mountains and rivers suddenly manifested in mid-air, surging forth to drown the dozen hen dragons. With a single move, they fell from the sky, plucked clean, feathers scattering everywhere. Qin Mu descended to the ground, stunned. The hen dragons clucked hurriedly and fled back into the coop, slamming the wooden door shut and daring not to show themselves. Cluck, cluck, the old hen cried sternly. Qin Mu waved his hand, and several sword chi marks were left upon the wooden door. The chicken coop descended into chaos. Qin Mu stared at his own hand in astonishment. When had he become so formidable? Muir is truly suave. He can finally defeat chickens, Cripple praised. Qin Mu's face flushed slightly, yet he continued to focus on the insights he had gained. At that moment, Moot tossed over a sword pellet and gestured, Abba! Abba! Qin Mu thanked Mute. What Mute meant was that he had just forged this sword pellet, and Qin Mu should give it a try. He grasped the sword pellet firmly, and vital chi poured into it. Instantly, countless sword lights burst forth, rays without substance, bending to his will, as natural as his own chi. Qin Mu clenched the pellet and thrust his fist forward. The sword rays within transformed at once into a colossal dragon that roared through the small village. Qin Mu leapt in shock. Village Chief likewise jumped in alarm and shot Mute an angry glare. Qin Mu withdrew his fist, and with a slight movement of his mind he felt the sword pellet melting within his grip. Tightening his hold, the sword rays shifted into a massive forging hammer. When he smashed it down with force, a great pit was blasted into the earth. He leapt again, and knife lights flared forth. Sun on East Sea. 1,000 layers wave emerged. Knife lights like layered tides, with a blazing sun rising into the heavens. The knife technique withdrew, and the sword rays became a giant brush that swept through the sky, painting a flood dragon that soared aloft before transforming into a 12-yard-long spear. Chin-Mu seized the spear mid-air and thrust it forward. The corners of Village Chief's eyes twitched violently as he glared at Mute with displeasure. Mute hastily retreated into his smithy, not daring to show his face. The spear vanished, replaced by innumerable sword lights that formed vast mountains and rivers. Sword-treading mountains and rivers. Chin-Mu landed, both astonished and delighted. This sword pellet forged by Mute suited him perfectly. Mute must have extracted the gold chi from mysterious iron and mysterious gold, selecting chi while discarding form. Though this was but a sword pellet, it possessed myriad transformations. His fist techniques, spells, and sword skills could all be unleashed without the slightest obstruction. Mute's forging skill was already nearing the realm of the path. Chin-Mu put away the sword pellet and did not use it to challenge Village Chief. Mute poked his head out and gestured twice, drawing a line across his own neck. He meant that with this sword pellet, Chin-Mu could certainly slay Village Chief while he remained in the Five Elements realm. Village Chief exploded in anger, the wrinkles upon his face trembling. If Chin-Mu truly used the sword pellet, the might of his sword skill would increase manyfold, and he might indeed be defeated. Chin-Mu shook his head. Grandpa Mute, Village Chief is not using a weapon. I cannot use one either, otherwise, even if I win, he will not acknowledge defeat. Mute rolled his eyes and cast him a look that clearly said he was hopeless. Chin-Mu once more immersed himself in comprehension, refining his sword-treading mountains and rivers. Yet each clash ended the same way. Every failure granted him new insight, allowing him to further perfect sword-treading mountains and rivers. Yet after each refinement, he still failed. At last, after yet another defeat, Chin-Mu realized he could no longer improve the move. With his current knowledge and experience, he could not elevate the skill further. He stood stunned for a moment, then suddenly understood. He executed a move from the Sunset sword skills, Sunsets on Surging River. His sword skill resembled a mighty river in flood, with a crimson sun half submerged at its heart. From that red sun, countless sword lights burst forth. He had practiced this move only once or twice, yet the power unleashed was incomparably astonishing, as though he had spent a century tempering it. Chin-Mu was convinced. He knelt before Village Chief and performed the rites of taking a master. Village Chief smiled. Rise, there's no need for so many formalities. I shall soon teach you the other moves of sword picture. With your current attainment, it will not be difficult to learn them. Mute, you rogue, you still dare to come out and offer congratulations? All the elders of Disabled Elderly Village stepped forth to offer their felicitations to Village Chief for at last finding an heir, and to Chin-Mu for inheriting Village Chief's mantle and becoming the human emperor of this generation. Yet, Village Chief's countenance bore displeasure toward Mute, and Chin-Mu himself felt no joy at the burden of the human emperor's title settling upon his shoulders. When the bustle subsided, Chin-Mu once more followed Village Chief to practice the way of the sword. Sword Picture was a sword art personally founded by Village Chief. It did not belong to the Hall of Human Emperors. Its first form, sword-treading mountains and rivers, was the most intricate sword technique Chin-Mu had ever encountered. Even the opening stance of Dao Sword, yin-yang come and go within two modes, was inferior to it in complexity. Yet, within the complete set of Sword Picture, sword-treading mountains and rivers was the simplest of the 8. The second form, Sword of Founding Emperor, was several times more abstruse than sword-treading mountains and rivers, and mastering it was exceedingly arduous. When Chin-Mu had first begun learning sword-treading mountains and rivers, he had required more than 10 days before he could wield it. After his journey through Eternal Peace Empire, his vision had broadened vastly. He had received the teachings of Woodcutter's Rock and comprehended the Unity technique, fusing it with the Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique. Through these transformations, his talent and understanding had both advanced by great strides. Even so, to learn Sword of Founding Emperor, he still spent more than 20 days. Only then did he grasp Village Chief's intention. Had they not previously crossed blades with sword-treading mountains and rivers, he would have needed far longer to comprehend Sword of Founding Emperor. It might even have taken him a year and a half before he could truly master that single move. Village Chief had wrung every drop of insight from him, forcing his wisdom to the brink, so that within merely 20-odd days he could attain Sword of Founding Emperor. Standing already half a step from sword technique toward sword skill, he could barely shoulder it, though the strain was immense. As for the third form, Calamity of the Apex Emperor, it had reached the utmost boundary of technique and transformation a sword art could possibly attain. It was not something Qin could master. He could memorize the posture and sequence, but to execute it required first comprehending its profound mystery. Yet at that time, no matter how he concentrated his spirit to ponder it, he could not fully perceive the wondrous profundity hidden within Calamity of the Apex Emperor. His limitations lay in the breadth of his horizons and the depth of his knowledge. With vision too narrow and learning insufficient, his foundation lacked solidity. Thus, even if Village Chief imparted it to him, he could neither learn nor employ it. Qin could only set aside his ambition toward that form and devote himself wholly to Sword of Founding Emperor. Sword of Founding Emperor, Sea of Blood. Qin had once heard the youthful village chief chant those words after stepping forth from Death's painting in that small, desolate village within Eternal Peace Empire. At that time, he had sensed within that sword art a strange, unspoken emotion. The sword-treading mountains and rivers that village chief had transmitted to him contained a hidden bearing and atmosphere, a mood of heroes assembling to slay gods and devils. Sword of Founding Emperor, however, carried the solemn air of commemorating fallen martyrs. The two intents were utterly different, their moods incompatible. For this reason, though Qin had grasped both forms, he still could not truly fathom the distinct emotions concealed within them. The vital qi demanded by Sword of Founding Emperor was astonishing. A single strike would consume nearly half his cultivation. Without a vast and surging sea of vital qi, one simply could not unleash this move. Village Chief, how many moves are there in Sword Picture? Qin inquired. Village Chief replied calmly. Only 8. Qin was taken aback. 8 moves, so few. 1 move for each realm. Village Chief narrowed his eyes. Therefore, only 8. Qin counted upon his fingers. Spirit Embryo, 5 Elements, 6 Directions, 7 Stars, Celestial Being, Life and Death, Divine Bridge. No matter how he tallied them, there were only 7 realms. Why then were there 8 moves? Above Divine Bridge lies the realm of gods. Could the 8th move of Village Chief be a divine strike? His heart pounded violently. In these days, aside from contemplating sword skill, he sparred with Village Chief, borrowing the pressure of that towering presence to temper himself. He strove to integrate the Imperial Preceptor's 3 foundational sword forms into Sword of Founding Emperor. With an existence like Village Chief guiding him, his progress naturally advanced by leaps and bounds. Village Chief's sword skill was already close to the Tao. To him, whether there were 14 forms or 17 mattered little. But for Qin, fusing in the Imperial Preceptor's 3 basic forms greatly augmented the might of his strike. As days flowed onward, his attainments in sword skill rose swiftly. It was as though Qin had returned to the days of old, practicing fists with Old Ma at dawn, contesting blade arts with Butcher, pilfering tricks with Cripple, learning forging from Mute, cultivating divine eyes under Blind's tutelage, refining medicines with Apothecary, studying painting from Deaf, and tailoring garments beside Granny. Though exhaustion claimed him each night, his heart felt brimful. After returning to Disabled Elderly Village from his travels, the teachings of Old Ma, Butcher, and the others had grown far more profound. In former days, they had taught him only foundational arts, but now that his horizons had widened, they could transmit deeper abilities. For this, all the elders were greatly gratified. Granny's heart devil is stirring again. A commotion arose within the village. Cripple's voice rang out loudly. Blind? Come quickly. Granny C has revealed her true form. I dare not lay a hand on her. You cannot see, so you deal with this little demoness. At that moment, Qin was crossing blades with Butcher. Hearing the uproar, he turned his gaze and saw a woman stepping forth from Granny C's chamber. At the sight of her, his heart trembled violently several times, as though pierced by unseen arrows. Granny C had unveiled her true appearance and adorned herself with utmost care. The garments upon her were no longer the coarse old robes she customarily wore, but exquisite silks tailored to perfection, accentuating her graceful figure. Her cosmetics were applied with delicate precision. Bright eyes, white teeth, her face lightly powdered, her breathtaking beauty was displayed without reserve. Upon her left wrist gleamed a bracelet of green jade. From her ears hung pearl earrings shaped like teardrops. When she stepped out, winter itself seemed to melt into spring and summer. Though the air remained frigid, everyone in the village felt a warmth like blossoming midsummer. She walked as though a celestial maiden descending into the mortal realm, stunning all beneath heaven. Apothecary felt inferior and covered his face in shame as he retreated. Deaf dropped his brush and hastily drew forth a bronze mirror to tidy himself. Mute rushed to the water cauldron to wash his face. Old Ma chanted Buddhist scriptures to suppress his heart devil. Butcher seized his pig slaughtering knife to shave his beloved beard. Cripple shut his eyes and shouted for Blind. Village chief, too, was slightly flustered and turned his head, calling, "Blind! Blind!" Blind approached with bamboo cane in hand and asked calmly, "Are you Cult Master Lee or Granny Sai?" Cripple exclaimed angrily, "Of course it's Cult Master Lai, that old pervert. Granny Sai can no longer suppress him. You cannot see her appearance, so you must suppress Cult Master Lai." From Granny Sai's mouth issued a coarse, aged voice, yet her smile was flirtatious. "My wife is no longer my match. Now she is the one suppressed. Look at me. Am I not beautiful?" She smiled sweetly, intoxicated with her own reflection. When she spoke again, her voice remained rough, yet her tone was gentle, and her breath carried the fragrance of irises and orchids. "When I married my wife, I realized I was unworthy of such beauty. Nor was I alone. No stinking man beneath heaven was fit to stand beside her. Yet I chose to wed her, and she consented because I was her master. She could not refuse. I knew she intended to kill me on our wedding night, but I was willing to let her do so. That was because—" She raised her wrist, admiring skin whiter and more lustrous than the finest white jade. Even the flawless bracelet seemed unworthy upon it. Cult Master Lee covered her mouth and giggled. "Because I envied her too deeply. I did not wish to marry her. I wished to become her. Once she killed me and I became her. Would I not gain the best of both worlds?" Blind advanced with his cane. Though the woman before him was peerless in beauty, it did not sway his heart in the slightest. "Cult Master Lee, you go too far. Have you forgotten you were once a man? What is there worth missing in being a stinking man?" Cult Master Lee's body swayed enchantingly as she rolled her eyes. "Blind, your eyes are blind, and so is your heart. You know nothing of a woman's advantages. Do not block my path. Alone. You cannot stop me. I shall depart and live anew as a woman." Chinmu squeezed his eyes shut, refusing to behold that beauty. Yet he found himself unable to resist reopening them. "Cult Master Lee, your mind has grown diseased. As a fellow Cult Master, sacred teacher of Heavenly Saint Cult, I despise you as a human." Blind leaned upon his bamboo cane and smiled. "Well said, Muir." Cult Master Lee cast Chinmu a glance. Instantly his mind emptied. All thoughts vanished, save one. The woman before him was exceedingly beautiful. "Speak another word, and I shall kill you to reclaim the sacred Cult Master's throne." Cult Master Lee laughed, fingers forming orchid seals. Chinmu's heart thundered. If such a woman desired his life, he felt he might willingly offer it. No, no, she is Granny Sai. Ooh, it is Cult Master Lai, a damned old man. Ooh, even if it were Granny Sai, she is the granny who raised me. Cold sweat streamed down Chinmu's brow. A heart devil nearly took root within him. He shut his eyes tightly once more. Cult Master Lai strode toward the village outskirts. Devil chi around her thickened. Her demonic nature surged ever stronger. Upon the road ahead stood a blind man with a bamboo cane. They moved almost simultaneously. Amidst flying sparks and bursting flames, victory and defeat were decided in a single instant. Energy roared in all directions. The numerous treasures scattered throughout the village were stirred awake by the terrifying shockwave of their clash. Radiant light erupted skyward. The clouds above were scattered by the fearsome throbs of power. Cult Master Lee clutched her chest and collapsed. "Blind, my wife's cultivation is too weak. Otherwise, I would not be inferior to you. I would certainly be stronger." Blind leaned upon his cane and said indifferently, "We had never exchanged blows before. How do you know you would be stronger?" Chinmu dashed into Granny Sai's room, seized a human skin and old garments, and covered Cult Master Lai. The old man reverted to an aged woman and shrieked, I do not wish to be like this. I am the most beautiful woman in the world. I do not want to be so ugly. I want to wear the finest garments and be the most beautiful woman. Old Ma hurried forward, chanting Buddhist scriptures to suppress the demonic nature, pressing Cult Master Li down completely. After some time, Granny C regained her clarity and thanked Old Ma. Apothecary stepped forward at once to examine her wounds. After treating her, he said, "Blind, you were too ruthless. Mu'er, your pill refinement surpasses mine in speed. Refine the spirit pills." Chin-Mu acknowledged and immediately began refining spirit pills. Blind sighed. "I had no choice. Granny C's cultivation advances too swiftly. She is nearing life and death realm. Cult Master Li's primordial spirit must have fused well with her. Moreover, his unity technique is simply too formidable." Granny C rose and consumed the spirit pills Chin-Mu had prepared. "I am fine. Much better now." Village Chief floated over and shook his head. "Granny, it is fortunate you were within the village. Had you been outside when Cult Master Li seized your body, you might have plunged the nation into ruin and calamity. His demonic nature is exceedingly strong. Turmoil would follow wherever he went. Even the Emperor would be unable to restrain himself. The entire Eternal Peace Empire might have fallen into chaos at Cult Master Li's hands." Old Ma said, "Your heart devil grows ever stronger. We cannot delay further. My Buddhist attainments are not as profound as old Rulai's. Perhaps he can suppress Cult Master Li for you. Why not journey to Great Thunderclap Monastery?" Butcher touched his face and found his hands smeared with blood. He had shaved too hastily and cut himself with his pig-slaughtering knife. In his infatuation with Granny C's beauty, he had felt nothing. Only after she donned the old woman's skin again did he realize what had happened. "There is no time to waste. Granny should depart at once. The longer we delay, the greater the danger." Village Chief coughed softly and said, "We go to Great Thunderclap Monastery to request old Rulai suppress Granny's demonic nature, not to eradicate that sacred place. There is no need for many people." "Old Ma knows the path and must go. Blind is unaffected by Granny's appearance, so he must accompany as well. Mu'er is clever and cultivates heavenly devil creation technique. He can assist and is skilled in healing arts. The three of you shall escort Granny to Great Thunderclap Monastery." His expression grew solemn. "Remember, never allow Cult Master Li to escape. If he does, the world will fall into utter chaos.